Good evening, everybody. I feel very honored that we put together such amazing crowd here today. And among us, we have many leaders from the crypto and blockchain space. At the same time, we have some of my dearest friends, supporters, and also luminary from the travel industry as well. And among us, we also have 15 medias. So thank you very much for coming today. And Singapore is like my second home. We are based in Shanghai, in China, but I actually spent 6 years in Singapore and did 4 years of high school here and spent 2 years working at Morgan Stanley before the financial crisis. So get back to the topic today. Okay. Right, so who we are. I already started with a little bit of introduction on myself. So besides being Singaporean, second Singaporean, I also founded Xanadu 5 years ago together with Dirk, my co-founder. And Xanadu, in the past 5 years, has established itself to be the #1 in terms of high-end travel in China. So we're the biggest brand name in China when it comes to quality and premium travel. So in the past 3 years, we win Condé Nast Traveler, the #1 high-end travel agency in China. Last 4 years, we're the #1 travel agency according to Huren Baifu. And over the last 5 years, we also completed 3 rounds of investment, angel funded by Matrix Capital. 2015, we received funding from Tencent. Tencent right now is our biggest institutional investor, on 15% of us. And 2016, we also closed a financing from Pusi Capital, which is linked to Wanda Group. And then, so as Xanadu, we're already working with the best hotel and travel ecosystem partner around the world. And from Aman to Rosewood to Shangri-La, Peninsula, et cetera, et cetera. And we are the preferred partner with many of the hotel chains as well. For example, Shangri-La, Peninsula. Our customer will be able to get preferential treatment as their VIP, including 24-hour check-in, et cetera. We also work with the top airlines around the world. Of course, our favorite, Singapore Airlines. And we're also a content and media business. We have 1.5 million users in China, which actually receive and reads about our content that we produce in travel industry. And we own magazines, which are distributed in China. We have our own app. And we work with a lot of KOLs in China. Some are top actors, some are famous photographer, KOL, chef, etc., coming from different walk of life, and they all endorse Xanadu. Most of the advertising that we did, actually we didn't pay any money. They are just very loyal customer of Xanadu. And because our premium positioning and the database we have, we also work with all the top brands around the world for their marketing in China. So BMW, Mercedes, Dior, Bulgari, et cetera, and paying customer in terms of advertising our platform. So now, basically, to get an idea, so I think Xanadu is a business we built in the last 5 years. It's a successful business, but in the past 1 year, we'll keep on thinking to ourselves that, what's the next step? What's the bigger challenge of the travel industry? And how can we grow and expand our business from just being in the premium sector, which we touch upon millions of people's life, to a more mass market product and services that can touch upon hundreds of millions of people's life, and how we can grow ourselves from a China-based business to a truly global business, given that China is the most important single travel market, but the team is very international. 100% our supplier are actually a global supplier, and 95% of our customers, which are based in China, actually travel overseas, right? So we started to really look into blockchain as a possibility with actually a lot of skepticism and doubts at the beginning. But after much research, brainstorming, etc., I think we come out convinced that the potential of blockchain, and we are convinced that we want to be the trailblazer in this new industry. And that research, that kind of effort in the past 6 months has led to our vision in Atlas, which I'm very excited to share with everybody here. So if there is a way to categorize business in the past 20 years in one word, that would be internet. Internet has changed every single industry, including travel industry. So these 2 charts shows the tourism spending grow only 30% in the past 10 years, but Booking.com, Priceline Group, now called Booking Group, so revenue has grown 8.9 times in the past 10 years. So internet is about centralization, and centralization has in the past created huge efficiency by bringing unlimited number of customers and vendors on the one platform. But this economy also creates a problem. It's very good for the platform, but it breeds very monopolizing behavior within the platforms. If you really look at the travel industry, there's 5 examples, the 5 platforms, Priceline, Expedia, Ctrip, TripAdvisor, and Dianping, they dominate the market in very different way. For example, on the content market, these 5 platforms together host 1 billion reviews. And TripAdvisor, Instagram pretty much derive 100% their revenue and valuation from the content created by user. But they gave 0% of the economic benefit to the people who actually created those content. If you look at the transaction market, Expedia and Booking.com alone control 70% of the global hotel booking market. And their business model is consisting charging 15 to 20% in commission and using 70% of that into buying traffic. So these 2 companies alone spend $7 billion a year on Google. They're the biggest client by Google of Google by far. And this is essentially become a rent-seeking behavior. As a platform, consumer and business are the one actually creating the real tangible goods and services, and platform basically squeeze the juice and marginalize both consumer and supplier in the content market and the transaction market. And essentially the problem is content ownership right now in the past internet age. I think internet platform just take it for granted. And the user also, because the new industry, will also kind of arrive to the situation that we also think there's nothing wrong with the content that we write on Instagram. The content we produce on Booking.com's review, on TripAdvisor, rightly belong to the platform. And platform can use whatever they want with it, and they don't necessarily need to give us. And platform has 0 incentive to share anything with the consumers, because anything shared will be out of their bottom line profit. And on the transaction market, this mega platform are so powerful and so big in terms of size that really dictate the market pricing. And there's no incentive for them to charge 15% in commission if they can charge 20%, because their goal is to maximize profit for the shareholders. Traffic code is the same thing. And another way is the user ID and data. Right now, if you look at the world that we live in today, all the user data and transactional data in the past are owned by the internet platform. The Amazon, the Taobao, the Alipay, they are monetizing the transactional data and user. Alipay is a $400 billion business, And people in the past have never questioned who should own this data, and even know that or realize those data has value. But I think with the Cambridge Analytics from the Facebook scandal, with the GDPR, the new privacy law coming out from Europe, I think the government and the users are waking up to the realization that we should have some control of the data, and those data has value. So wouldn't it be nice if we can create an ecosystem, a new kind of ecosystem where consumers can really own the digital identity and then transactional data? They can be compensated for actually producing the content which created so much value for the like of TripAdvisor and Instagram. Can they be compensated by the platform for the data that they actually monetize? And can the supplier can directly transact with consumer with 0 cost or without the intermediary? And can that actually access data which doesn't really exist today? These days, even vendors want to get cross-platform data. They can't, because those data is owned by Amazon, owned by Booking.com. They never share with each individual hotel or each individual vendor. Instead, you have to pay by banner ads, pay-per-view, pay-per-click, etc. And is it possible that on this platform, consumer business can establish one-to-one relationship directly with consumers? And then travel business on this platform can access those data without cost and launch their own D-app and token offerings. And the solution that we see is Altas. The goal of Altas is to really connect consumer and business to this ecosystem, And this new ecosystem gonna be consist of three things, which are very important for the travel industry, and they are interlinked together: transaction, user data, and content. Content is important for travel industry because that's what people rely on to make purchase decision, transaction decision. Most of people decide on where they want to stay, which hotel to stay, which destination to travel, based on social content on TripAdvisor, Instagram, or reviews on Booking.com, etc. Transaction is important because this is where the e-commerce business, where bulk of the volume of the ecosystem is going to come from. User data is interlinked with transaction, and we really, really think that the world needs a decentralized platform where actually cross-platform data can be owned by the consumer in the travel industry and can be actually shared with each individual vendor. And this is going to be how it works. Utilizing a tokenized economy, will want to be able to directly incentive content creators. So think about a platform where you now today contribute any content, travel content on Instagram, TripAdvisor, or Booking.com, you'll get zero pay. That incremental value of this content collectively are owned by the platform. Instead, we're using tokenized economy to directly return back to the ecosystem of content creator. So people who are actually creating value are getting their share of the ecosystem. And with this limited supply of token supply, every year we have a 10% new supply of token, and that 10% new supply token, majority of that is used to incentivize content creator. Then back to transaction. In this world, we want to create a zero transaction cost marketplace. We want to create a version of the world, a travel ecosystem where a hotel doesn't need to pay 15% in commission. Instead, we're asking the vendor to actually pay 5% in rebate, in terms of loyalty rebate, converting the Altas token directly to consumer. So just make it a bit simple to understand. So for example, to book a hotel, $200 in Singapore, right now, Booking.com will take 15% of commission. So hotel receive $200, pay $30, only getting $170 net. In our transaction platform, they don't have to take the $30 away. Instead, they only need to pay $10 directly to the consumer. Even that 5% is not charged by the platform. It's used to directly pay consumer in exchange by consent-based use of their entire transactional data on the platform. So this is complete GDPR compliant. We basically create a new way that directly allow the hotel to access those data, and those data are consent by users, and is actually cross-platform data. It's going to be transaction history happen on the entire Altas platform. So from the consumer's perspective, you will be able to get 5% rebate, which are actually linked to a tangible value of the token on exchange. And you also have the choice to decide whether you want to take that rebate or not. If you don't want to share your data, you can say no to it. And from the business perspective, is a win-win situation with no loss. They're saving transaction and create an additional venue for them to do marketing and access user data, which they have never had a possibility to attain. So that goes back to the user data. So once the user data are distributed and stored in a decentralized platform, they're not owned by Altas. They're not owned by ourselves. User has control of this data, and the vendors has ways to directly engage in accessing the data as long as they have a consent from the consumers. We feel that this is a much needed thing in the travel ecosystem. So now the question is, why do we need blockchain to do it? Can we actually do it without blockchain? This new kind of ecosystem where you remove the middleman, the intermediary, return all the economics back to the consumer and business. Why do we need blockchain? I think there are two reasons that we need blockchain. One is blockchain enable a tokenized economy, which is very needed for this business case to work, right? If you are trying to create a not-for-profit platform where you actually don't make any money, no investor want to fund your venture, right? It's great for business and great for consumer, but what's your take? Why we should fund it? Why we should make it grow? I think tokenized economy is fundamentally a different way to look at where the economics come from. Instead of a zero-sum game between platform and consumer and business, where my gain is your loss, and your gain is my loss, everybody's put on the same boat, sharing the economics for a tokenized ecosystem. So that, I think, is important for that legitimate business case to be made. Second is blockchain's features like decentralized database, public accessible blockchain, smart contract-based governance, providing that immutability and transparency which is needed for such a platform to function. Because without the trust issue, I think your goal of creating a platform where it's returning all the benefit to consumer may not necessarily be believed by the stakeholders. How do I know that you say you're going to return 100% of profit, but instead you're actually keeping 30%, only returning 70%? How do I know that you promise you're different than Booking.com and TripAdvisor, but instead you're just another version of that without actually telling me, right? So the blockchain's revolution through that is bringing that immutability and transparency so people can see every algorithm, every rules of engagement is written into a smart contract enforced by computer code. Even the platform itself cannot be changed. And any alteration of those data can be seen by the community. And that self-governance by the blockchain make this kind of idea a reality. So I think that is, to me, the promise and excitement of that. So in the next couple of slides, there's going to be a bit of technical framework. I'm going to quickly kind of go over it. For people who are interested in that, you can download the white paper on our website, and there's going to be 60 pages of technical detail you can go through. So essentially, we're doing two things. First, we're building the blockchain infrastructure in terms of protocol. We're building the core blockchain layer, including blockchain and offshore storage. We're building the APIs, allow people, the other DApp, including our DApp, to access content, payment gateway, channel management, customization. And then Atlas, our own APP, third-party APP, and et cetera, can access this infrastructure. And in terms of the infrastructure, we're linking consumer, user, and third-party developer all together. The blockchain will be used to identify raw data, to be stored raw data that data including venue, transaction, etc. But we're hiding off personal data in terms of personal user data for security and privacy reasons, and personal private transaction data off-chain so that we can protect the privacy of that. And essentially, we'll be able to create an ecosystem whereby blockchain protocol and the app are interacting, and Atlas can be a token, internal token, and payment system for content, transaction, advertising, and other DApps. And in 1Q 2019, which is 6 months from now, we'll be launching our Atlas DApp. So blockchain is actually not something tangible. It's actually the base layer technology that actually supporting the infrastructure. And what people are going to interact and feel and on a day-to-day basis will be an app. This is an iOS app. It can be seen as the next revolution or next generation of TripAdvisor plus Atlas, plus Booking.com. Instead, the ecosystem run is backed by a blockchain system. So we'll create a version of a content system where when you can create travel content as easy as Instagram, but instead you have to tag every location, and there's a marketplace that happens where the data can be shared and stored, decentralized, when a transaction doesn't need to happen with a cost. So 2019 1Q, we will launch the Altas app. And by 2019, FOCO, end of next year, we'll be actually release our mainnet where all the blockchain functionality will be capable and will be able to apply to the apps. And 2020 will be global dominance. So in a nutshell, I think our goal is to really provide an infrastructure that can really connect consumer and business in the travel industry together when we actually incentivize content creation, incentivize transaction, incentivize consent-based data sharing, which is going to build a much healthier and bigger travel ecosystem. But this is the vision, and we can't do it by ourselves. Today marks the first step of an ambitious journey towards that goal. And I'm very, very happy that today that we invited so many supporters and dear friends and media to these occasions. You know, we needed the support of the crypto community, investor community, because we need to raise the money to achieve this goal. We needed the support of the travel ecosystem, our partners from hotels, from travel agency, etc., to understand the story and knowing that we're creating value for them. You know, we're creating real value for them and no cost, and they are only to benefit from it. And we want the help of media to help us to promote our story, you know, to understand that how we are different. We know that in a lot of days, these days people look at kind of blockchain project or cryptocurrency projects, sometimes with a lot of skepticism. Yes, this is a market where there's so many projects, and being honest, a lot of times those projects are not that legitimate, right? I think we want the media's help to separate the good ones from the bad ones. We want the same thing to happen with the crypto community and travel industry. And thank you again for coming here and listening to my speech. And last thing, we're gonna summarize with a little video.
The internet revolutionized the travel industry, but it is far from perfect. An uneven ecosystem sees profits monopolized by middlemen demanding huge commission, dictating market price and traffic flow. Invasive data sharing laws, hoarding and selling on consumer information, and no reward given to content creators who help others plan that perfect trip. We've seen these inefficiencies building. Now it's time to change the status quo. Atlas is our new universal blockchain platform for the travel market, a distributed smart network connecting consumers with businesses. On Atlas, content creators are finally rewarded for their invaluable advice. Data ownership is returned to users with full access control. Businesses can pay consumers via Atlas for meddle-free data access. And transactions occur direct via our zero-commission marketplace with rebates directly to consumers for cross-platform user data. We're also launching the Atlas token, a flexible internal currency for rewards, payments, third-party exchange, and token offering basis. With Atlas, we chart a new path for the travel industry, a single infrastructure that revitalizes consumer trust as we distribute value of the ecosystem back to consumers and businesses. Join our growing global family, including hotels, airplanes, payment gateways. Let's rediscover the simple joys of travel, free from centralized interests. Discover more about Atlas. Visit atlas.world to be part of the future of travel.